Hi, I'm Samantha Bryant. I'm coming to you from Illogicon 2019, and I'm best known as the author of the Menopausal Superhero series, but today I'm going to read from a short story I wrote that was included in Off the Beaten Path 3 by Perspective Press. This is my daylight ghost story called The Girl in the Pool. I was pretty little when we moved here. In the first pictures of me taken in our new house, there are some serious gaps in my smile and a Blue's Clues Band-Aid on my elbow. I couldn't have been older than 7 or 8, all skinned knees and matted hair. Now it's only another few weeks until I leave for college. When I remember my first summer here, it both feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago. I mean, my mom and my stepdad had just gotten married. Now they've been married so long they look alike. I don't even exactly remember what it was like when my mom and my other dad were married, so this is ancient history. I was the flower girl and the maid of honor at their wedding that spring. I wore a pink dress and white sandals that clopped when I walked. I'm cute as a button in those pictures, too. I was excited about my mom getting married, and I liked Stephen, but marrying Stephen meant that we had to move away. His work was down here. I put on my best brave face for them when they told me. No crying or screaming about leaving my friends and my home. I was always a good girl like that. But it was hard, packing up and moving to another state, starting over and trying to make new friends. Everything about the place was weird, from the way people talked and what they ate to the intensely hot weather. The worst was that we arrived in summer, so I had long days stretching out before me and no one to play with. There were other kids in the neighborhood, but they were a lot younger or a lot older than me. There was no one the right age to hang out with, and since I hadn't been to school here yet, I didn't know anyone in any other neighborhoods. I was one lonely kid the first few weeks. Stephen had to work, Mom was busy looking for a job and settling our stuff in the new house, so even she wasn't really playing with me like she usually did. Days are long in the summer, especially when you're on your own. The heat made the days feel even longer. There was a pool in the yard across the street, and I would sit on the swing that my stepdad hung from the big tree in the yard for me, spinning around in a useless circle and watching the hot southern sun sparkling on that empty pool, wishing someone would invite me to go splash around in it. The people who owned the pool were older, like someone's grandparents. They kept the pool for their grandchildren, I guess, but the grandchildren weren't there much, so most of the time that pretty blue water sparkled in the sun with no one to play in it. Stephen wondered why they kept it uncovered when it was used so seldom. The old couple themselves never seemed to get in the water. But the old man was out there every morning skimming the insects and leaves out of the water with a giant long-handled net that I found fascinating. That and the weird socks he wore. Mom said they were compression socks, meant to help with circulation. I thought they made his real legs look like fake ones. After 2 weeks or so, I had established a lonely pattern of cartoons until my mom kicked me out, then puttering around our yard until she called me in to eat. I was sitting out on the swing reading one of the fairy-themed books I was so into that summer when someone called out to me, "Hey, kid!" I looked up. There was a little girl, maybe just a smidge older than me, leaning on the fence around the pool and looking at me. She smiled and waved when she saw me. "I'm Becky. Want to come play with me?" Boy, did I! I ran and I got my mom. She was unpacking yet more kitchen stuff. There was a lot to unpack, combining all of our stuff with all of Stephen's stuff. It was taking a long time to figure out where to put it. Still, Mom was happy to hear I'd had an invitation and took a break to help me find the right things. A few minutes later, I was wearing my swimsuit and carrying a towel and we were crossing the street together. Mom knocked on the door. When a tall, slender woman with tall white hair answered, Mom explained that we were the new neighbors from across the street. "My daughter said that Becky invited her over," Mom said. "Would it be okay if she came over and swam with her?" "Becky?" The woman's voice sounded strangely full of emotion. "Definitely. Please, come in." The lady walked us to the pool and sat drinking lemonade with my mom for a little bit, talking about whatever moms did when they set up playtime for their children. Meanwhile, I dangled my toes in the water and waited for Becky to reappear from wherever she had wandered off to. It didn't take long. I hadn't seen or heard her come back, but there she was, sitting next to me, dangling her toes in the water. "Want to be mermaids?" she asked. I readily agreed, and we spent the whole afternoon playing mermaids in the pool while Becky's grandma watched us. Mom went home after Miss Rita said it was okay. Mom still had a lot to do, after all. She gave me a kiss and told me to behave. She didn't say anything to Becky, which was a little rude maybe, but Becky and Miss Rita didn't seem to mind. Ms. Rita did a good job watching us. She stayed by that pool every moment, her eyes focused on us girls playing in the water. Most grown-ups seem to grow tired of watching the children play and wander off after a while to take care of grown-up things, but Ms. Rita was glued to that deck chair, watching like we were the most wonderful things she'd ever seen. Becky didn't pay her much mind, and after a while, neither did I. When I got home for dinner, several long, wonderful hours later, Mom covered me in lotion and cursed quietly at herself for not getting me better sunscreened. "You're going to have a sunburn, sweetie. I'm so sorry." I did have a sunburn, but that didn't stop me from going over to swim with Becky every day that Mom would let me. I just wore a t-shirt over my swimsuit and a hat while my skin healed. Becky was really lucky. She didn't have to lather up, but she never burned. I was jealous. If anything, she seemed paler than me, but no lobster skin or peely nose for her. "Maybe it's because it's my pool," she said, shrugging. That made a kind of sense to me, like there were pool fairies and they protected the one who owned the pool. Becky never wanted to go to my house or do anything besides swim. That girl must have been part fish. I swear she lived in the pool. I didn't mind much. I was still having a hard time adjusting to the southern heat. Being able to play in the pool until I was waterlogged was heavenly. I always invited Becky when we went to the zoo or the park or out to ice cream or anything, but she always said that she couldn't. Mom thought maybe her grandma was just really protective about who she rode in a car with. Ms. Rita would bring out snacks and juice for us and tell me that I was no bother at all and I should stay as long as I'd like. She was happy to see us girls playing so nicely together. She brought out an enormous collection of pool toys that she had stashed somewhere, and Becky squealed with delight over them. Becky sure brightened up my summer. I remember noticing one day that she always wore the same swimsuit. It was made of something different than mine, something more like the stuff regular clothes were made out of. It was light blue with white stripes and had ruffles around the top and around the bikini bottom. I found it a little surprising that she would still wear ruffles when she was as big as me. I had several different bathing suits. A red bikini with a bottom that looked like a cheerleader's skirt, a bright green whole piece with a crisscross on the back that I was always getting twisted up when I tried to put it on by myself, a tankini with a seahorse on the chest. By the end of summer, I had a mass of various tan lines from all the different straps on these swimsuits. When I asked Becky why she always wore the same swimsuit, she just shrugged. "I don't know. I just like it, I guess." She sounded mad, though I couldn't understand why that would make her angry. Trying to make her feel better, I told her it was pretty, but she still pulled at the ruffles, scowling. Splashing away, she dived into the deep end and just sat there on the bottom of the pool looking up at me. Her long hair billowed out around her like seaweed. No air bubbles came from her mouth or nose. Her eyes were open and seemed to almost glow through the water. It was creepy. When she finally came back up, after staying down so long that I had started to worry, I told her that she looked like a real mermaid with her hair floating out like that. That seemed to make her happy again, and we raced across the pool doing different kinds of crazy strokes for a while. We swam with only one arm, or with our feet and no arms at all. We dived down and walked on our hands on the bottom of the pool, our bare legs sticking up out of the water like skinny tree branches. We turned somersaults until I swallowed some pool water and had to cough it out. Miss Rita just sat in the pool chair and watched us, hour after hour. I thought she must be bored, but she said she wasn't. "No, honey, it's fine. It does my heart good." Becky only came to visit during pool weather. She was never here at Christmas or during the winter. When I asked Miss Rita when Becky would visit again, she never seemed to know. She'd just say, "She'll come when she can, darling. I'll have the pool ready for her." There aren't any pictures of me and Becky that I can find. When I asked Mom, she helped me look, and she was just as surprised as me to find out that there weren't any. After all, we'd been so close that summer and for another summer or two after that. We'd play all day together whenever she was visiting her grandma. You'd think someone would have taken some pictures of the two of us. We found some of me clowning and posing at the pool, but none with Becky in them. I wish there were. I'd really like to see one, to be sure it wasn't something my memory and family resemblance playing a trick on me. Because I'm pretty sure I saw Becky again today. See, Stephen and my mom had another kid after they'd been married a few years. Jean is 7 this summer, 10 years younger than me. Mom says she looks so much like me at the same age that it's like deja vu. Of course, we're also very different. Jean is an outgoing little monster, the kind of person who can talk to anyone. She'll know your deepest secret within 10 minutes of meeting you. When I got home from the soccer tournament I was playing in today, Jean was across the street playing in Miss Rita's pool. Mom asked me to go get her so we could all get some supper together. I ran across the grass along the same path I had taken all those summers ago, my cleats scraping on the garden stones. Jean's a good kid. She came right away when I called her, wrapping herself up in a raggedy strawberry shortcake towel that I'm pretty sure used to be mine. "Bye, Becky. I gotta go," she called, reaching up to undo the latch and let herself out to join me on the path. I looked back at the pool, and just for a moment, I thought I saw my Becky there, elbows resting on the pool edge, the same girl I had played with all those summers ago. And then it was like I blinked, and she was just gone. I asked Jean about her on the way home. "What's your friend's name?" "Becky." "That's neat. I had a friend named Becky when I was your age. We used to swim together in Miss Rita's pool, too." "Yeah, I know," she said simply, in that matter-of-fact way of hers. "She told me, but you got too old to play with." A chill went down my spine. I got too old? "Yeah, Becky's always 8. You can't play with her if you get too old. She said to tell you hello, though. She always liked playing with you."
Interesting.
Thanks. Jen, do you want to do yours next?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'll get you set up online.
Trade phones. Right away. Was this an okay angle from where you were
Yeah,
sitting?
your bag's in the whole thing though.
Yeah, that's okay. People can know I have a bag. I can move it out of yours if you want.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
My name is Jenn Broenner, Jenn Broenner, Broenner. Correct.
German Brenner. Oh, and then I left your phone over there.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. I'm on our extra phone and I gotta find the right thing.
This is Jen wrote a news story and I haven't been allowed to hear any of it yet, so I'm excited. That's why I was pushing her to go next because I want to hear it.
And Jen, do you have a Twitter handle that you'd like to
I
put
do.
on the screen?
It's at Hulk Pool Snape.
Wait.
Okay. That's all right.
HULK.
Pool, Pool, Snape, Snape.
Okay.
Wow, that's definitely hotel wallpaper. Like you don't see that kind of wallpaper anywhere else.
It's not quite overlook, you know. It's not
Actually,
that.
though, it makes a good background.
It's a little bit like yeah, it's interesting without
If it
being
had some
so
red in
interesting.
it.
You look at it instead of the
Right.
yeah.
Gold. You're right. Oh, this phone like turns itself off really quickly.
So you got the thing you want? Pulled
Yes, I'm ready.
up? Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I am Jenn Broenner. I'm going to read a short story to you today that I just wrote recently. Hope you enjoy it. Look in a mirror. Do you see your reality or is it hers? Sleep. Do you dream of her world or are they just dreams? 6 a.m. The alarm sounds. Woken from a deep sleep, Lita turns off the alarm and looks around to acclimate herself. Am I Lita or am I Trish at this moment? She sets reminders in each reality or whatever these lives are to whom she is right then. She sees the hand-painted rock. That means she's Trish. Trish has kids and a husband. She is a bit mundane. Trish looks to her left. There is, what's his name? She thinks about writing out notes to store in her phone in each reality so that she can be reminded. His name is, after a pause, she thinks it's Jim? No, Jem, that's it. He continues to sleep and she rises, feeling a strong pull to the mirror in the master bathroom. She goes to it and looks at a face. Her face, some of the time. Guess I have to be Trish, so that means get ready for work and Jem will get the kids up. Work is dull as usual until a face Trish is sure is from Lita's world appears in an article she sees online. It is an ad for a health study. That face, she tries to recall how she knows them and it hits her. Kelly is her name. She's a friend of Lita's and she appears to be a doctor doing a study on multiple personalities. Well, that seems odd considering the Trish-Lita dilemma. Trish decides to take a lunch to explore the office where the study is to take place. Big mistake. She steps into the building and has flashes of Kelly, but from Lita's memories, and they are not good memories. Trish almost falls to her knees in the lobby, but manages to slip into an alcove and regain control. She leaves the building and goes back to work. Nothing else eventful in her day after that, and she goes home for the night. Jem has dinner ready, and the kids are at the table playing a card game together while Jem is making up the plates. Trish helps with the plates and sits down to eat. She feels disconnected from this reality, and she's pretty sure Jem knows it. Is he real? This life, she wonders. She gets to sleep early, blaming it on a headache for Jem's sake. Honestly, she wants to be Lita and needs to sleep to get there. She wakes, but not from an alarm, but a lick to the face. That's her dog, Humphrey. Weird, she has no trouble remembering him. Must be true love. She's got to get showered, walk the dog, feed him, herself, and get to the lab. This is the part that is fuzzy about Lita's life. She never can recall. At each arrival in Lita's body, she wonders what she does at the lab exactly. The question once again arises, is she Lita or Trish or something or someone else entirely? She remembers yesterday as Trish came to the building that Lita works in. Maybe that explains the panic attack. She enters the building and heads to the elevators to which floor is it? She pauses and remembers a rhyme. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix. 7, 8, better stay up late. 9, 10, never sleep again. And it clocked, it hit her, 9. She has to sleep, so 10 minus 1 is her floor. She gets off on floor 9 and remembers the door. And oh right, her badge is in her bag. She gets it out and scans it, and the door lock is released. She walks in with purpose, even though she has no idea what that purpose is at this point. She sees a sign with her name on the door, Dr. Lita Owens. She tries the door and remembers to try scanning her badge again, and here it works. She decides to try to log into the computer next, and she is in luck. She has a fingerprint to log in, since she really has no clue about what the password would be. This screen comes up to the answers to who and what she is. Hello, Dr. Evans. Would you like to end the simulation now or continue the experiment past day 360? And that's it. Thank you.
That was fun. Cool. Yeah. Did you hear something?
Anybody else?
I have a story, but I will need a minute to set it up. Is that okay?
Hey, you gotta get your device turned on. Are you gonna read something else after? We'll see. It depends on how long her piece is and if there's time. And it's okay if there isn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much time it'll take. But my name is Allegra Gulino.
I recorded on this one, right?
Spelled like the allergy drugs.
Yes,
I got
I was
confused.
reading off of this one. That's why I brought it.
Oh, I got confused.
Because that's our new phone.
I was just gonna look and see how long the video was of my story, because 11 minutes.
Do you have a Twitter ID you want to share?
I don't have Twitter.
Or a website?
I do have a website. It's, okay, the word convergence, spelled normally,
Convergence.
epic, again spelled normally, .com.
Convergence Epic as one word, right?
As all one word, yeah, everything spelled normally.
Okay.
You don't have any, fours for Y's or anything?
I don't like cutesy. Sad to say. Wow, I've never done this before. Okay, I'm gonna try to relax.
Oh, yeah, it'd be fun.
Okay.
Just act like you're just reading that.
Just pulling up the story.
We can listen to the sound of water running. What is it?
I know, it is a very strange.
I don't know, but we're going to be battling it all weekend.
Yeah.
You've been hearing it all the whole time.
Yeah.
Come on.
At least all the construction workers have come home.
We heard about that. Somebody else was talking about where they were banging.
Yep.
Oh, really? Banging? Oh, God.
I guess if you're reading a horror story, it could work out. In your
It
favor.
could.
Yeah,
Yeah, it could. Okay.
Think you ready?
I'm ready.
Go for it.
Are you ready? Is everyone
Yeah,
ready?
it's all
Okay.
good.
All right.
Y'all ready for this?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a short story, unpublished. I hope to hear back about maybe it will be published soon. But anyways, it's called Aquasphere. Maxine Kerrigan, soon to revert to her original moniker of Maxine Trent, had moved to the small town of Russellville, Pennsylvania, half an hour from Maryland, to be closer to family after her divorce. With the support of aunties, uncles, and cousins, settling into her new vet tech job at the animal hospital and finding a low-rent apartment near Essentials was fairly easy. After weeks at her new residence and several trips to the thrift store, she had obtained the basic implements and furnishing for her shabby, yet oozing with charm place. But while the shelves had filled with unpacked books and her music or TV resounded in the space, in quiet moments her apartment sighed with grief and loneliness. The potted violets and spider plants suspended in old macrame were her only companions, and the empty walls ached for adornment. Her funds were limited. In a wave of gung-ho independence, she tightened and oiled the creaking cabinets and covered the formica counters with phone books, pottery, a toaster, a teapot, and her next project, a beta tank. Growing up in Philadelphia while her parents were living, Maxine had kept the ornamental fish. She was a regular at mom-and-pop pet stores. Also known as Siamese fighting fish, betas are hardy, freshwater fish that don't need aquarium filters. The males resembled miniature silk scarves in bright blues, teals, and reds, and are usually for sale in small jars. They kill other males, so are kept solo. The plainer, short-finned females are sold less often, but can be kept in small groups. Betas cost around $4, and if well cared for, can live 2 to 3 years. Atop her bar counter, Maxine had set up a nice home for an incoming fish friend. As a last purchase in Pittsburgh, where her marriage failed, she had bought the 5-gallon tank and gravel. Since moving, she had purchased live plants and a grow light from a nursery. The ecosystem has sat, filled and without an occupant for a week, while she bustled in and out. Tonight's the night. She decided on a Thursday in February 1989. After hunting through the yellow pages for an aquarium store and plying her map for a route to its location 8 miles from the town center, anticipation swept her from her Cutlass Sierra and in through the fogged double-glass doors of Aquasphere. Her arrival was announced by a loud, clanging bell. "I'm getting the most beautiful beta they have." She would name him Quincy, after Michael Jackson's producer, Quincy Jones. Calling him Michael was too obvious, and triumphantly bring him home. Then Maxine will perch on her bar stool, enjoying Quincy's slow-motion flamenco dance and how he gobbles his food like a shark. She won't be alone. Behind the store's front counter, a balding employee clad in a faded blue Aquasphere t-shirt slid 2 bags of feeder goldfish into a large paper bag for a stout, sandy-haired customer. He probably has Oscars. Maxine always disliked the rusty-looking freshwater fish with thick bodies and gaping mouths. They eat smaller fish. The cash register drawer shut, and the young man paused at a clothes rack to don his winter coat and flip up the fur-edged hood. As the door shut behind him, the affixed bell clanked decisively. The middle-aged cashier gave Maxine a seedy grin and gestured toward the rack. "It is warm in here." Ignoring his avid assessment, she unzipped her parka and slid out, revealing her orange cable sweater. Removing her turquoise beret to stuff in an empty sleeve, she hung the coat. It teetered on the rack, black next to the 4 other such garments. Settling the strap of her tiny purse across her body and combing fingers through her fro, Maxine strode further into the store in high tops. It's been a long time since she's been in such a place, so she decided to peruse the merchandise before zeroing in on the betas, whose jars she was sure to locate on an end cap. 2 back walls were lined with 3 tiers of aquariums. She headed toward the nearest one. After observing the anemones and their busy clownfish stewards, she moved down one tank to yellow seahorses dotted with acid green. Usually, only public aquariums have them. Occupying the highest row above those were purple-fringed jellyfish, never for sale, as far as she knew. This place is amazing. A freckled-faced, red-headed teen tittered at her explanation from behind a shelf full of aquarium pumps and filters of many types. Another glimpse at her confirmed that the girl's face was thin and pointy, almost deformed. Maxine turned away. She slid her sleeve down. Her watch said 8:35. When did they close? 9? More briskly, she moved along the sidewall tanks occupied by marine life, wondering if the back wall had freshwater fish. Maxine halted. What kind of fish are those? Marine fish, judging from the lumps of coral in their 55-gallon tank, but their heads and faces looked like the stylized pug dogs rendered on Chinese screens. And such colors. Am I seeing things? Bending at her hips, Maxine watched a rainbow sheen in the spiky manes around their heads, ripple and change hue like lava lamps. The creatures' bodies resembled that of a muscular koi with crenellated silver scales. They swam side to side, kites on tight strings, jouncing toward her. "What are you?" she asked, as they splashed toward the tank rim. "There should be no such things." She straightened and looked for a label naming them. Instead, the corner of her left eye caught a long and slithery something in the next tank over, eel gray but with rows of flippers and a pink gaping mouth. The creature lashed and wormed at the front glass of an inadequately sized tank. It looked prehistoric. She gasped with a hand over her chest as it flipped out of its uncovered enclosure and wriggled on the floor, 2 feet long and hissing. "It's escaped! Somebody!" Maxine was rooted to the spot, watching the thing's dozen or so flippers find purchase on the linoleum tiles. Like an aquatic centipede, it scuttled wetly under the row of tanks. "Hey, anyone! It's escaped!" She turned and collided against the rotund clerk from the front with twinkling eyes. He was wearing an employee's blue shirt. His grin obscured his eyes even more and displayed crooked yellow teeth. She started, That eel thing!" but was hushed by his shrug. Then her flummoxed reaction elicited a low belly laugh from him. "What's funny?" She was annoyed, but his amusement continued. As he gibbered, his cheeks bunched like tennis balls. Then they grew heavy, losing their fullness. They dropped toward his jawline, dragging his eyelids down to display the red inner lids. His mirth gained a bullfrog resonance. Aghast, Maxine took a couple of steps back. The underlayers of his eyelids and cheeks burbled halfway down his face, like melted wax, and the skin of his sparse brows and forehead expanded upward in 2 ridges over his widening eyes, while his black hair slid backwards over his head. "Come," he boomed at her and extended his meaty hands, with see-through membranes stretched between the digits. "Shit!" Maxine spun and fled up an aisle, away from the tanks, or a watery commotion indicated more escapes. The freckled girl leered down at her over innocuous aquarium supplies on legs that were stilt height. "It's okay," she trilled from pinched beakish lips. "Join with us." Her spidery hands wreathed beside her narrowing head. "It's marvelous." But Maxine sped around her toward the door. It seemed a longer distance than she remembered. The seedy man rounded the corner at the end of the aisle ahead. At his feet rolled 4 pufferfish, blown up and a yard in circumference. They barreled toward Maxine. Over their whirling spikes, the man had a loathsome smile under a dancing halo of anemone tentacle hair. His hands were the same chimera of wiggling color. Before she could react, she was lifted from the rolling menace by the cranish arms of the red-headed girl. "Really, it's okay. It's fun," she chirped musically. Her skinny, hard fingers dug into Maxine's armpits. She screamed, kicking the tops off of the aquarium fluorescent lights, which protruded vertically above the shelves. They shattered everywhere with a crash and tinkle. There was a softening sensation under Maxine's arms. Her humerus bones painlessly stretched away from their sockets, and their fleshy connections melted from Stork Girl's grasp. Incredibly, Maxine landed on her feet in another aisle, but the impact of the 10-foot fall didn't punch agony through her skeleton. Instead, kinetic energy spread like warm honey and broke her skin's boundaries. The flesh of her feet merged with the fabric and rubber of her socks and shoes and exuded blob-like over the floor, while the rest of the impact glided through her extremities. Despite her horror, it was pleasurable. Her forearms joined with her orange sweater yarn. They pulsed, stretching their edges, and her brown fingers waved in boneless slow motion. It was exquisite. She couldn't tear her gaze from looking down at herself. Her intuition cried, "You're lost, lost." But a giggle escaped her. She was an amoeba. The tension that resided in her firm body with its fixed edges in limited shape was something she hadn't known she had carried. The tautness dissipated as her skin exuded into new shapes. Her breasts roiled and bounced against her arms, and each step was a fun blend of oozing and rebounding off the floor. As her humanity evaporated, so her resistance to the transformation melted away, except for the inner voice saying, "Get out!" The coy pugs crawled on the floor at the far end of the aisle. They tumbled into a huddle and began to mate with each other. Maxine guffawed. "Get out now," commanded her instinct. Backing away from the amorous creatures, she again encountered the pufferfish rocking to and fro like they were in a trance. No problem. In the narrow aisle, her malleable edges formed thrilling new shapes around their spikes, then peeled away. At the edge of the aisle, the condensation-covered front door was 20 feet away. If she could just stay focused and keep up the momentum, she might escape. Escape to what? Will I stay this way? I can't live. "Get out," came the familiar order. "Okay," Maxine slurred. "I'll go." "Wait," came a baritone behind her. While gushing forward, she bent her head around to see the speaker. He was morphing into a starfish. Peach-colored tube feet zippered up and down the front of his body. He must have worn a red leather jacket before. Crimson, warty skin expanded over the curling backs of his hands and made a crinkly, leathery sound as he struggled and bristled toward her. Somehow his dark face retained its perimeters against the fantastical growths. It was dominated by large, soft, poetic eyes and a broad forehead. "Don't go," he said, with his full lips emphasizing the O. Instead of bending at the knee, his legs half snaked, half staggered him across the floor. Horrible. "Please help me." At me, his smooth mahogany throat and the collar of his sweatshirt reappeared. He was fighting the transformation. He can fight it? She took his wreathing, prickly hand in her undulating one. His tube feet adhered. The contact tingled through her. Suddenly, she wanted to envelop him in lustful flesh instead of flee. As his powerful grip drew her near, his eyes half closed in pleasure. Her head gushed forward to kiss him. Out the corner of her eye, she glimpsed Stork Girl copulating with Anemone Man, suspended between the wares and the drop-in ceiling, with her spindly limbs braced on opposite sides. "Get out!" She withdrew her head from Starfish Man. "Come on!" Her voice slid uncontrollably downward. A bubble burst from his lips as he answered, "Let's go!" Rebounding from him, she propelled toward the exit, while his legs moved along like ill-formed claymation. With monstrous croaks, Frogman bounced toward them on long, deeply folded legs. "Three-legged race," Starfish Man cried. "Of course." With his left leg embedded in her right, his arm glommed to her back, and her hand infiltrating his coarse waist, they worked their legs. "In!" they called, and their joined inner leg strode forward. "Out!" and their outer legs swung. They progressed even faster toward the moist doors. "No!" Frogman boomed at their backs. But a moment later, they shoved the doors so hard the bell was jerked free to make a clamorous riot on the floor behind them. In, out, they chanted, continuing their bizarre march through the chill air, cutting to the left across Aquasphere's parking lot, which faced the empty Route 34. From inside the store, they heard Frogman bellow outrage, but they plodded through the dead winter weeds between the malevolent store and a U-Haul lot closed for the night. They passed the first row of rental trailers, then the second. Pain seared Maxine's right side. She gasped, "Let's stop." They halted behind a trailer's big metal box and listened. Distant traffic from 34's intersection with Thebes Road droned, then died. Maxine's right arm and leg were alive with pins and needles. She peeled her hand and forearm away from him. Groaning, he unwrapped his leg from hers. It tore like Velcro, then peered around the trailer at Aquasphere. "Look!" Maxine peeked around the corner above his squatting form. Under the parking lot lights, Aquasphere was losing its edges. Its beige grid of bricks wobbled, as if stirred by inner currents, and its glass front rippled. The neon open sign shorted out, followed by the interior lights. Then the flat roof bubbled, souffle-like, and hunkered down, while the walls bowed out. Faint singing came from inside, as if the occupants were doing a choral warm-up exercise on several discordant notes. "Wow," Maxine said. He put a hand on her back. Through her nubby sweater, her senses registered a solid, separate form resting there. Aquasphere's shape quavered, a giant jello mold in an earthquake, except the land was still. A rumble thickened the night air. Then, as if the edifice was a huge blister, it popped and gushed into the ground. The liquid snapped toward the center and splashed away in lessening ripples. Reflected lights winked on its surface. Pulling back from their observation point, they sat heavily on the ground. Maxine's jeans creased into her groin and behind her knees. Her high tops contained her feet in their waffle-soled shape. Her bra straps dug into her shoulders. Turning to him, spears of illumination lanced between the trailers, revealing an appealing dark face with large poetic eyes, closely shorn hair, a full mouth, and tapered chin. Calvin? Oddly, she knew that was his name. Maxine, he was deferential. "It's over," she said, leaning, her fluffy topped but otherwise solid head against his shoulder. "Yeah," he scooted closer. His leather jacket creaked mildly. I didn't think we'd make it. Maxine shuddered. I wasn't sure I wanted to. He put an arm around her shoulder while all remnants of the scene's glamour were shed from their systems. Oh my God, that place was off. He chuckled. I'll say. With a deep breath, he said, thanks for leaving with me. After all that, I don't think I want more fish. Laughing, but also crying a little, she turned toward him to squeeze his cool, strong fingers between hers. Fish can't talk. They can't replace a person. I've been too isolated, trapped. Let's blow this joint. Calvin scrambled to his feet and held a hand out to her. Insight rushed over her. A beta, a childhood comfort. Won't fix me. Thank you, Calvin, she said, hauling herself up with unexpected vigor. It's damn good to meet you. The end. Thank you. I know, sorry that was long.
No, that felt like it was the right length.